Now that you've helped us to track looting and encroachment, you have earned the ability to help us discover and protect archaeological sites previously unknown to the scientific community. Welcome to the discovery phase. While this task will build on the skills you learned in the looting and encroachment phases, discovery is an entirely different realm. The very nature of being undiscovered means we can never predict what we are looking for. Therefore, this phase requires even greater skepticism, a sharper eye, and the use of some image processing.
Discovering sites starts with noting unusual characteristics. You then investigate for additional evidence that may support or disprove that the site is ancient and man-made. The key is maintaining your skepticism long enough to ensure a positive identification. If the unusual features are supported by the mounting evidence that you collect, you'll mark the tile as an undiscovered ancient site. We'll use the word anthropogenic to refer to sites that are ancient and constructed by humans. The most obvious characteristic an anthropogenic feature will present is its shape. Perfectly linear, circular, square, or rectilinear shapes don't typically occur in nature, so when you find a shape that fits that description, it's probably man-made and worth investigating further. Sometimes the structure is directly visible from the satellite image, like in this case. You can see the dark linear features partially covered in vegetation on the top of a large hill. These features are stone walls built as some sort of boundary. In the southern part of the image, we can see rectilinear features that are probably structures. This entire region is covered with similar structures as well as other types of features. Along the cliff face, you can see a winding linear feature. This is an ancient road. While the road does not vary much in color from its context, its shape is unmistakable. Other times, the shapes may be obscured by erosion or vegetation. Many sites are so badly eroded that you wouldn't be able to spot them on the ground level. However, anthropogenic features hold moisture differently than the surrounding earth. At times, that moisture will create a subtle difference in the appearance of the surface, revealing the blueprint of the site to us in the satellite image. When vegetation grows over an ancient site, it could hide it from view, but pay close attention. Crop marks appear when the health of the soil and vegetation is affected by subsurface ancient features. When this happens, you'll actually be able to see the shapes of the site hidden underneath, presented in the color of the vegetation. There's one more way you can find unusual shapes in the tile. Sometimes the shapes are so obscured, you won't be able to see them from the unprocessed satellite image at all. But you have a special tool at your service. We've provided an image processor that highlights certain parts of the light spectrum and can reveal subsurface features that would otherwise be impossible to see. Here we're looking at a modern farmhouse on an island in the North Atlantic. We can see nothing of note in the fields around the house other than the bumps of the field boundaries. However, there is a giant stone structure just underneath the surface. The only way we can tell is by processing the image to enhance the reflectance of the stressed vegetation. This straight, hot pink line is a buried stone wall. No one living in the area had any idea what was just under their yard. Without this added level of observation, no one would. Now, it's worth noting that when you use the image filter, you're even further removed from reality and should use a more skeptical eye. But when it's plain that you have an interesting shape in front of you, whether it's visible in the processed or unprocessed image, move on to the following important questions you need to ask. Is it at human scale? Are the materials ancient? Is there evidence of looting? Let's talk about scale. Humans tend to build human-sized structures, so even if the shape you've found is a perfect rectangle, if it's much larger than makes sense for human use, it's probably not anthropogenic. There are exceptions to this rule, such as the pyramids of Giza or the Great Wall of China, but most large-scale discoveries have already been made, so look for structures that are human scale. The materials humans have used to build have changed over time. Most ancient sites will be built with stone or mud brick. However, some modern cultures still use those materials to build. In that case, you'll want to look for evidence of modern use. Things like power lines, cars, trash, and tire tracks may be clues that you're actually looking at a modern structure. In this example, the rectilinear stone structures, absence of clues for modern use, and presence of looting tell us that this site is probably anthropogenic. Sadly, looting is now common enough that its presence has become a clue for anthropogenic sites. If you see looting near the shapes you've identified, consider it additional evidence that you've found an ancient site. Let's recap the questions you'll be asking as you enter the discovery phase. Do I see any unusual shapes? Something perfectly linear, circular, square, or rectilinear? Remember, these shapes may be seen plainly, or you may find them in the form of obscured moisture patterns, crop markings, or through the lens of an image processor. Is it to human scale? Are the materials ancient, and if so, am I confident they aren't in modern use? Is there looting nearby? If your answer to most of these questions is yes, you've likely found an undiscovered site.
The possibilities are unlimited. Since we've started using satellite imaging to identify sites, the greatest surprise hasn't been the size or type of the features, but instead that the evidence of humanity's past is everywhere we look. Now, we have your eye to help us tell our shared human story.